Well, we'd really like to talk about BPC, Budget Planning Council. It's a closed meeting, and we think it should be open, and the difficulty is it's not technically a government body, so their defense is they're not subject to, sunshine laws and open record laws, but they advise a government organization and they're appointed by a government organization. So I think what these kinds of conferences help are they create a discussion about fringe items like that. I mean, everybody knows that if you request a budget from the university, they have to give it to you. If you request, a a court docket, they have to give it to you. But these types of things where they're kind of in a gray area, or where these types of events really get a bunch of journalists together who are dealing with the same things. They talk about it, they see what needs to change, and they see how it can change. And I think that's really what this will help. And now we have another organization forming, which is the committee that's going to decide what the new multi-purpose facility is going to be for. And that's also going to be closed. And it's the same deal where they were appointed by the university, but they're just an advisory committee, so they're not subject to these rules. And I think those are two very specific areas that I hope are discussed, and that I really am excited to talk about. In general, in the macro perspective, this stuff cycles. I mean, you have periods where it's open, 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 and then something will happen, like, for example, the WikiLeaks scandal, and then, not scandal, but the WikiLeaks, just controversy, whatever you feel about it. And then the government kind of wants to, close the doors a little bit more, and then they'll open back up. But overall, in a very long term, I think it'll always be moving towards more openness and more willingness to share information. You'll always have your hiccups. For example, one of the areas that's interesting to me, because I have a basis in sports, is the way FERPA is used. And for example, there was an article in the Dispatch last year, I think it was last year, it might have been a year and a half, 2 years ago now, and it was about how basically universities use FERPA much more generously than they should. They will redact all kinds of information that shouldn't be redacted, to the point where the actual congressman that wrote that legislation says that FERPA is not being used properly, and it's been being misinterpreted grossly by all different kinds of universities. And so I think that's something that'll get out there, and then that will, as people notice that it's being abused, it will get better. And I think that's the general trend with things. When people start to see that open records laws are being abused, and they're not being, or institutions aren't being faithful to them, that's when heat gets put on them, and then it gets better, and they realize they have to open up. And so I think that's where that's going. One thing I would like to see in that letter is that you can't use the defense that an organization isn't a government body in and of itself. I believe that if a body or an advisory committee or anything like that is appointed by a government institution, then their records and their meetings should be open. And the real problem is that their defense, I don't know if it would hold up legally that they're not actually a body. I mean, it seems to me that they're a body. They're appointed by the university. But then some of the people in it, they'll say things like, well, we can't let people in because we don't really know what's going to happen, or there's hearsay. Well, then I say, why don't you just get organized, know what you're going to talk about, and then if there's going to be hearsay, then just qualify it before you say something. Say, now this is what I've heard, or this is a rumor, or I haven't confirmed this. If those are the real problems, I don't understand why they can't fix them. I mean, those aren't, they're not difficult problems. And I think if that's what they're going to say, then that really doesn't stand, and they need to fix that.